Okay, morality versus ethics, ethics versus morality. This is what this video is about. What I'm offering you here is a distinction, and it's a distinction that when you see it, it's going to start tuning you into something, which in turn is going to tune you into more of your personal power, an organization of reality where you're connecting with your power and you're bringing yourself to bear upon the world according to your reasoned and thought through choices, according to guidelines for engagement that have been structured from your higher self, versus living in reaction by a bunch of unconscious programs that have been put deep into your operating system outside of consciousness as you grow up. Okay, so this distinction I'm offering you here is a tool, if you like, for moving to a different level of engagement with life. So morality versus ethics, morals versus ethics. What I'm about to offer you here is not dictionary definition stuff. If you were to look stuff up in the dictionary, I don't know what, you might find morals and ethics are a synonym, but I'm using the labels here to point to something subtly but powerfully different. So what is morality? What is ethics? Both morality and ethics are sets of guidelines, if you like, about how to live in the world, how to act, what is a good thing to do and what is not. But they have a different vibe, a different energy, and a different origin to them. So morality is implicitly inculcated into us through the influences on us as we grow up, our parents, our peers, our schools, our society. We absorb unconsciously all these rules about what we should and shouldn't do, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. Morality is based in the unconscious idea that good, bad, right, wrong exist in the world, and that we need to adapt ourselves to fit these criteria that exist out there beyond us and beyond who we are. So actually morality is an inherently victim position, in that it comes from an organization of reality where the power is out there. Right and wrong exists out there in the world, and I have to make sure that I'm doing right and doing wrong in a complex world. The difficulty comes about because the world is not only more complex than we think, it's more complex than we can think. So we're chasing these things, these essences of right and wrong in the world, good and bad, should and shouldn't, that are conceptual and exist in our neurology and in our culture, but don't actually exist in reality. So we end up playing a sucker's game and going round and round and round, but living in reaction and living in a disempowered way and living in a knee-jerk way. We end up being very reactive. Somebody judges us and we go, ugh, because we're fearful that we've contravened the objective standard that we're not aware of. So that's how morality works. Ethics is different. Ethics is also a set of guidelines about how to behave, but it is explicitly internally generated. It comes from a place of higher function and thinking things through. Morality comes from unconscious installation as you're growing up through inculcation. Ethics come from you applying your higher reasoning self and thinking through your own choices for engagement with life, the universe, and everything. It's an infinitely more empowered place because it comes from an organization of reality where you are in your agency, you are in your choice, you are in your sentience, and you are making full use of that in choosing your patterns and your modes of engagement, your guidelines for engagement, if you like. Now, most people, most adults in the Western world never really get to the place of ethics. They remain mired in morality for their entire time. And one of the reasons is they don't see the distinction. The distinction isn't seen. Now, I want to offer you another device here for pointing you in the direction of seeing this distinction, and it's the mantra of morals versus the mantra of ethics. The mantra of morals is you should or you shouldn't. You should this, you shouldn't that. And specifically, you should or you shouldn't because. You shouldn't do that because da 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 da. And it comes from this unconscious visceral response. It's coming out of people's mouths, or it's rippling through people's minds. Before any real thinking through has happened, it's just a reaction. You should, you shouldn't. That's good, that's bad, that's right, that's wrong. How dare you, da 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 da, whatever. Comes from this knee-jerk judgment in the moment, blah, unthought through, unconscious. You should, because is the mantra of morals and morality. The mantra of ethics, on the other hand, is I choose. I choose. And I choose, and here's why. Here is my reasoning behind my choice and my choices. So I choose comes from a thought through place, and it comes from a place of ownership, owning your sentience, owning your responsibility, owning your ability to respond, to engage, full ownership. And it comes from a place of having thought things through. So you can say, well, in these situations, this is what I choose to do. And here's my reasoning behind this. This is why I think that this is a good and functional choice. Now, you'll notice it's a more nuanced position based in evaluation. Evaluation is very different from judgment, which is the basis of morality. Judgment is always about finality and rightness and wrongness. It's black and white, and it's final. Judgment is, how dare you, when somebody is morally outraged, how dare you? There's no question that person is wrong, that they are being wronged. And in a final sense, there's no question in their mind that there might be another way of seeing things or being or whatever. But I choose, and here's my reasoning, it's based on evaluation. Now, evaluation is different from judgment in that it has more nuance in it, and it remains open. It doesn't claim, it makes no claim to facts. It merely makes claim to reflection and consideration, not to facts. Morality makes claim to facts, facts about right and wrong. And of course, it depends on your perspective, and my perspective is clear. I'm with William Shakespeare. There is no good or bad, only thinking makes it so. So I'm going to offer to you the idea that if you haven't considered it before, and you want to live a life that is more grounded in your own power, you want to start moving to an organisation of reality where you connect to your power rather than abdicating responsibility to phantoms of rightness and wrongness out there in the world that were arbitrarily installed in you. It's time to start becoming aware of how morality works, becoming aware of your own morality, stepping back, disembedding, getting a little perspective, and non-judgmentally looking at that and start thinking things through. How is it that I want to be in the world? How is it that I choose to be? How is it that I choose to show up and engage? This is such a powerful place to come from, because it puts you in a place of certainty in an uncertain world. Because you can always know that you are adhering to your own internal criteria and guidelines that you have thought through. That's a really solid place to be, rather than worrying about whether you're doing the right or wrong thing because you're believing a reality tunnel where right and wrong exists out there in the world, and it's not always clear what is or isn't. When somebody else is saying, how dare you, to you, you should, to you. They're shoulding on you, and you're lurching about because you're unconsciously not sure who's in the right and who's in the wrong. We go beyond who's in the right and who's in the wrong when we ground ourselves in thought through ethics. It's not about who's in the right, who's in the wrong. It's about how we choose to be by our own thought through guidelines and criteria. So you end up with a much more solid, grounded way of being, because you know what you're internally aligning with. You know it's got solidity to it because it's thought through. You can step back from the lurching reactivity of morality. Now, with that mantra, you should versus I choose, you can hear I choose. You should is blamey, it's finger pointy, and it creates division. It creates antagonism, and it's regardless of whether you should is directed externally or you should, as in I should, is directed internally. It still creates division. It creates judgment, me versus you. I choose creates an internal coherence. I choose. me in totality. This is what I'm choosing to come together and align around. So ethics is much more powerful in that it brings this coherence, it brings aspects of self together to work together, rather than creating schism and division and fractionation. So ethics, morals, the choice is yours. If you've never considered this before, I'm going to invite you to consider this now. Consider how you are being owned, in a sense. We all are. We all are until we're not. Owned by a bunch of moral programs that get installed into us implicitly as we grow up, and they're not thought through. They're just assimilated, and they create responses, lurching responses. And they usually lead us to live a life of reaction, because we're reacting all the time to what is and what isn't, right and wrong, and we're believing the idea that right and wrong are these immutable things that exist, and perhaps we need to argue about who is right and wrong, versus connecting with choice, recognizing that the world is a complex place, and that we're going to do an imperfect job, and there are always going to be compromises to be made, but we are going to be aware, we're going to have high levels of consciousness switched up, and we're going to create our own guidelines of engagement, and those are going to create an internal compass that gives us a lot more stability and groundedness in our engagement with the world, versus that kind of lurching reactivity that we get from morality. Start thinking through, how do you want to be? What do you think are good and useful ways of engaging? There's no right and wrong out there. It's about you connecting with your sentience and making choices about how you are going to ethically live in the world. So there's morals versus ethics. The choice is yours.